Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's so great to be with you once again. I'm Governor Spencer Cox, and we're coming to you live from the historic Governor's Mansion on South Temple in Salt Lake City. It's so good that we have this opportunity. It's been a very busy day, and a really incredible day. Started early this morning with our One Utah Summit that took place. We actually had our first one in Cedar City last fall. This was our second one held here in Salt Lake City. We had over 1,000 people there. It was a long day filled with incredible presentations and speeches and panels talking about all of the issues that are so important to the people of Utah. And hopefully we'll get to some of those issues and those questions tonight. We really appreciate you taking time to spend it with me tonight, hoping to answer your questions from all over the state. Also just got done doing an hour-long rural radio show that was broadcast to stations, all rural radio stations all across Utah with live callers calling in. So we've been taking those questions and having a great time discussing the issues that are important to you. I also wanted to touch on something that just happened over the last couple of weeks. Governors in every state, and certainly historically here in the state of Utah, have taken trade missions to other countries throughout the world to help increase trade between our countries, to help improve the economy, to help businesses in Utah that are looking to expand and to attract businesses from other countries who may be interested in investing in Utah. Because of COVID, I have not been able to engage in any of those trade missions until just last week, when we finished our first trade mission, and we chose Mexico as the first place to visit. It really was an incredible trip. The World Trade Center was with us. The Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity joined us and helped lead the trip. We had businesses from all across Utah, rural businesses, or urban, suburban businesses, big businesses, small businesses, all looking to engage in trade with Mexico. We went to Mexico City first, where we met with leaders, economic leaders in Mexico City, as well as political leaders, including the Secretary of the Economy and the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. From there, we went to the state of Jalisco and the city of Guadalajara, which is really the cultural capital of Mexico, and had amazing meetings there with business leaders, with the governor of Jalisco and their economic advisors. We learned so much. Full disclosure, I did live in Mexico as a missionary, not in those two parts. I lived in another part of the country. It was incredible to be able to speak Spanish and have really intense discussions about what's happening there. And the reason I bring this up is Mexico is our third largest trading partner. Tens of thousands of jobs here in the state of Utah are reliant on trade with Mexico, and billions of dollars of trade between the United States and Mexico that are so important, and a huge trade between us and Mexico. Technically, the UK is our first largest trading partner, but that's just because of Rio Tinto and the mines. So that one, although technically the first, that one is really just one provider, and Rio Tinto is such a large operation. So it's Canada and Mexico that are the two largest. And what's fascinating there is, of course, we talk about the border issues, and it's really remarkable to me to see what's happening in Mexico. And this is good news for the United States. I can't tell you how many companies I've talked to in Utah that want to expand in Mexico, not taking jobs away from the United States or from Utah to Mexico, taking jobs from China, where they have production facilities now, and moving them to Mexico. There's a couple reasons that that's so important. One is, of course, supply chain issues that we're seeing with COVID and just the length of time it takes to get goods from China to the United States. In an era where we all shop online and want to push a button and have it show up in a day or two, or sometimes even in the same day, those supply chains, it's just not feasible to be bringing those products and supplies from China as much anymore. Secondly, maybe more important, is the instability that's happening with the government there, and their hostility towards the United States. So reshoring, and by the way, we passed a law here, something that we proposed, working with the legislature, to help incentivize more reshoring of those jobs here to Utah, so that we can increase our production capacity, our manufacturing capacity right here in Utah as well. But moving also those jobs to Mexico, so nearshoring, getting it closer to us, and this has another added benefit, even though unintended. Creating jobs in Mexico, or moving those jobs from China to Mexico, will help significantly with the border issue, as more and more people really want to stay there and find work there and have an opportunity to stay there and be very successful. So we're very excited about the conversations that we have there, and are really looking forward to opportunities to engage and do more business here in Utah, but also more business in the country of Mexico. So with that, I know we have lots of questions that have been sent in, people that have subscribed to our newsletter and have been working, asking questions there, people who have already responded on Facebook and Twitter and other places asking questions. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can. But we're going to go ahead and start with the first question. The first question comes from a newsletter subscriber, and the question is, what is being done or what can be done to make housing more affordable? Look, so there is no question. You've all seen this. It's been really crazy what is happening with the price of housing everywhere in the United States, especially the West, and especially the Mountain West. So Utah, Idaho, Arizona have had the highest increases in the price of housing. So there's a couple things. Look, this is basically economics, basic economics 101. It's supply and demand, right? So if you have more demand, the price is going to go up until you add more supply to bring the price down. And so that's exactly what we are working towards. So in this legislative session, we passed several laws, working very closely with the legislature, and we appreciate their leadership in this space, for more funding for deeply affordable housing. So those are people who are on the verge of homelessness, that need affordable housing at the very lowest levels. And so we got, I forget all the numbers right now, about $45 million, something like that, for deeply affordable housing. There was even more than that for other housing projects in the state. But also it's about creating more supply, and in areas that can handle some density. So density can be good or density can be bad. It just depends on the infrastructure. So what we're doing is working with cities and their housing policies to make sure that we are including density around places that have infrastructure. So think around like track stations, where there is good transportation infrastructure. Because what we don't want is density that then makes your commute worse or makes it harder, decreases the standard of living where you live. So those are some of the things that we're working on. I will tell you, there's an interesting thing out there that is on our radar now, and we're still not sure how to fix it, and we would love your input. I've been very supportive of Airbnbs and VRBOs. I think they're great. I think they're good for the economy. Certainly, we love to stay in them as a family. When we go to Moab or St. George, we'll often stay in an Airbnb. But what is happening here is, as we're building more and more homes, more and more of those are being used as Airbnb. So when we turn our houses into hotels, now we don't have as much supply, if that makes sense. So what we've, if you have 20,000 houses now that are being used as Airbnbs, those are houses that people can't buy and live in. They're being used as hotels, which is great. But also it now means that there are fewer houses for people to live in, and that's going to make it a little tougher and make the price go up. So that's a problem. Now, there's another supply side to this, and I mentioned the demand side. What is happening right now is the feds are actually trying to destroy demand. And one way they're doing that is to make lending more expensive, right? Or borrowing more expensive. So you've seen interest rates are going up. That is sadly, and kind of an artificial way to kill demand. We don't like that way to kill demand. We would rather increase supply, let markets work. But making it harder for people to get a loan or making loans more expensive is going to hurt demand, and that is going to lower the price of housing. Sadly, it could also lead us to a recession. So that's what the Feds are trying. The Federal Reserve is trying to balance as they meet and make these decisions. We saw a big increase in rates just this past week. We anticipate that there will be more increases in rates coming. So I know that's a very long answer to a short question, but I do anticipate that we will see housing prices start to come down over the next few months, just because it's going to be harder for people to get loans. And I don't like that either, because that penalizes the people who are just trying to get into housing for the first time. And so hopefully that will be short-lived. Hopefully we can get inflation in check. I wish the federal government wouldn't have made some of the terrible decisions that they've made around energy and around stimulus funding. But that's where we are. And certainly as a state, we're looking for ways to decrease the price of housing as well. So stay tuned. All right, let's go ahead and get to the next question. Also from a subscriber, what are you doing to help reduce water use during our drought at government buildings, i.e. the Capitol? So great question. We had an incredible legislative session when it comes to water this year. I so appreciate our legislature. We asked for it, we pleaded for it, and they delivered in droves. We had a record number of water conservation bills. In fact, I think, we haven't done the full study, I actually think we had more conservation bills passed this year than all the other years as a state combined. That's how impressive it was, the focus there. We also passed around $500 million in spending around water conservation. A lot of that will go to secondary water metering. So those are all very important. But you asked specifically what we're doing around government buildings. So I actually issued last year, and it is still in effect. I issued an executive order on May 3rd of last year, implementing water conservation measures for all state-owned properties. So we significantly reduced our water usage last year, and we'll continue to do that yet this year. We had yellow spots and brown spots in the Capitol lawn and here because we were reducing that. We also passed this year. There's a HB 121 was the law, water conservation's amendments, and that requires water conservation at all state facilities, and it limits the amount of grass that can be planted at any new state government facility, and they can't have more than 20% of the area be grass. So we're trying desperately to do our part to reduce it. State agencies were also tasked with reducing outdoor water use as compared to the 2020 as kind of the baseline in amount to or greater than 5% by the end of 2023 and by 25% by 2026. We're hoping to exceed those requirements, but we're excited about the opportunity for that. Also provided $5 million in incentives for property owners, so for all of you to replace grass with drought-resistant landscaping. So those programs exist already in some places. These are kind of flip the strip or remove your turf and put in some water-wise landscaping, some incentives to do that, some cash incentives. So check with your local water conservancy district. I know Jordan has it, Central Water has it as well, but there will be more, a statewide program. The first statewide program is coming into effect, and we're very excited about that. So really looking forward to more information there. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the third question. This is related question from Jordan, who says, asks, how are the tacos in Mexico? Jordan, the tacos were incredible. I have to admit, I ate far more than I should have, but every time I think we have great tacos here, I go back to Mexico and remember they're incredible. So thank you for asking. And we can talk tacos. Send in your taco related questions. I have lots of answers for you. Okay, what does the summer water reservoir situation look like as it pertains to lakes, boating, and irrigation for summer lawns all along the Wasatch Back and southern Utah? So I wish I had some better news. Unfortunately, we're still in drought. And water from reservoir storage was used heavily last summer. And if you'll remember, we started in a terrible place. So I'm going to share actually a mixture of good news and bad news. The good news is that last year at this time, a significant portion of the state wasn't just in extreme drought, but exceptional drought, which is the highest level of drought you can have. Right now, we don't have any exceptional drought in the state, but we do have some extreme drought, and we have drought conditions all across the state. So from that perspective, we're starting off in a little better spot than we were last year. We've also had some good spring storms, which is very helpful. And it stayed cooler through May with these storms. And this week it's cool. That's good because a lot of the snow is staying in the mountains. Now we are going to have a big warm up next week. I know a lot of people are ready for that, but getting through May, getting through mid-May is really helpful and really important. Now here's the bad news. Last year at this time, our reservoirs were at about 70% capacity. This year, right now, our reservoirs are about 60% capacity. Half our reservoirs are at 50% or below capacity. That's what we're dealing with right now. So that's bad because we had some storage last year. We used that, and we didn't refill even that amount of storage. So a lot of this is going to depend on how we do with storms over the next few months. Sadly, we had a very bad January and February. That's what killed us. January and February just flatlined. There was no snow, so that really hurt us, and we're going to be playing catch up the rest of the year. So we're going to need everybody to be very cautious. I'm so proud of the people of Utah who really stepped up last year, and we saved tens of billions of gallons of water last year by conserving. And so we're asking people to do that right now. I issued an emergency order around drought because we know we're going to need it. Hopefully it'll rain and rain a lot all through the summer, and we'll be just fine. But we can't rely on that. We have to prepare as if that's not going to happen, and we have to do that by conserving. So thank you. Now we are trying to keep our reservoirs full for boating and recreation, all of those things. Obviously, Lake Powell's really struggling right now. We did release water from Flaming Gorge to go down to Lake Powell to help with the power transmission that happens down there, and also obviously helps with the recreation opportunities. But it's good. We're in for a little bumpy ride. So stick with us, and let's work hard together. Thank you for that. Okay, next question. We're getting a lot of water questions, and this is great. This is coming from Rob on Facebook. Are you considering long-term water availability as part of infrastructure when considering where more housing can be built in the state? Rob, it's like I paid you to ask this question. The answer is yes. And this has always been a concern of mine because I was a mayor and a county commissioner. And so as I was looking at growth, we were always really careful to make sure that we knew what our water facilities were like, what our infrastructure was like, make sure we always had enough water for growth. Sadly, that hasn't been true with every community across the state. So one of the laws that we passed this year actually requires, as part of the planning process, that every municipality include water infrastructure and water availability, water resources as part of their planning. So you're not going to be able to have more growth if you don't have the commensurate water infrastructure. Very important. We are also working through a statewide, a comprehensive water plan. We just released the second chapter of that has just come out. And we would encourage you to go and check that out. I'm going to get the website for you. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue, but we'll get the website for you here very shortly, and let you know exactly where you can go to see that statewide water plan. We're looking ahead 20 years, 30 years down the road, making sure that we are planning to develop those resources, and that we will have the infrastructure necessary. And again, conservation is a big part of that. Don't get me wrong, conservation absolutely matters, and that's part of our plan as well. But I'm excited for you to take a look at the next chapter of that plan. So thank you for that great question. Okay, and I'll get you that website here shortly. So. Oh, here we go. It is GOPB. Sorry, that's Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, but the shorthand gopb.utah.gov/water plan. All right, gop.utah.gov/water plan. Very clever URL for you there. So okay, so go ahead and check that out and give us your feedback. If you have thoughts, ideas, questions, please get back to us. Okay, next question. I know a Ukrainian interested in fleeing to the US. Governor Cox recently announced support to accept refugees to Utah. When will we start accepting them, and what steps will be required for them to apply? So, what I can tell you is that the federal government has announced a new Uniting for Ukraine program. Okay, and that's what they're calling it. So this program allows individuals in the United States to sponsor Ukrainians to come to the U.S. So what this is really unique, and it's something that we were pushing for. I thought this was always the best idea to get people here. But so the individual, so if you have some friends here, or you want to sponsor a family, someone you know, the individual has to take on the financial responsibility to receive, maintain, and support Ukrainians. So details are still being developed and discussed, but my understanding is that this is actually happening now. In fact, we have someone we know who is working with the State Department right now to try to get some of their family members here, and they're going to sponsor them. But you can visit DHS.gov, so dhs.gov/Ukraine for the latest information. What I will say is we're also working with our refugee resettlement. Again, this is going to be different because they won't be coming to our refugee resettlement agencies or to the state. They'll be going to individuals to help them. But we have infrastructure in place. We have resources in place to help people who are coming to the United States. We've just done this with our hundreds, I think close to 900 now, refugees who have come from Afghanistan. And so it's really important that even when you're hosting these families, that we help them. Again, we help them learn English. We help them get into the workforce. We have jobs available right now with the lowest unemployment in the country. We have jobs available here, making sure that they transition in a way that is helpful for them and helpful for the families that are taking care of them. So thank you for your generosity. The people of Utah have been incredible, reaching out to those in Ukraine. Okay, another question. This from one of our newsletter subscribers. If you're not subscribing to our newsletter, you should. It's excellent. I'm very proud of the work that we're doing every week. Some of Utah's beer laws create tons of needless waste and costs for business owners. And with supply chain issues and inflation, the problem is only getting worse. Would you be open to allowing stronger beer on draft at restaurants, negating the need for bottles and cans, and easing the strain on our landfills and recycling centers? Great question. Certainly open to that. I'm open to very common sense legislation when it comes to alcohol, and I have to give kudos to our legislature. We have passed several very common sense legislative changes. What I'm interested in is protecting our youth from alcohol, and then protecting overconsumption of alcohol, and of course alcoholism and binge drinking, and those are the types of laws that I'm very supportive of, and so finding that balance, and again, very common sense approaches. If something is happening anyway, is there a reason that we have this in place? Is it making a difference, or are there some unintended consequences? So this is the first time that I've heard of this question and this concern, but I certainly appreciate it, and we want to support Utah businesses, and so that would be a legislative question. And certainly something that I would encourage you to reach out to a member of the legislature. We're happy to have that conversation as well. I want to give a shout out to our Department of Alcoholic Beverage Services. It used to be Control, DABC, now it's DABS, and the whole reason for changing that, it was symbolic, but again also practical, and that is that we believe that DABS should be helping businesses to comply, being service oriented, making sure for those that do drink can find a drink, and that we can do so in a responsible manner. And we are trying to change and become much more business friendly on that side. We're trying to modernize in ways that has not been done for a long time. So we're modernizing the supply chain piece, and we're trying to modernize again the way we interact, the forms that you have to fill out, getting those online, making sure that you can pay online as well, making the delivery much simpler. So all of those changes are happening. I hope you're noticing. If you're not, reach out to anyone at DABS, and they'll be able to share with you some of the changes they're making there. So great question. Okay. More water questions. Thank you from Carl on Facebook. Has the state identified future dam sites to pursue? And the answer is yes. We have a list of potential dam sites, and we have had for decades. It's certainly part of our water planning process. So again, I want to be very clear. On the one side, we're working on conservation. On the other side, we have to talk about water storage. I mean, the reason we are who we are as a state with the #1 economy in the nation isn't because we have a great governor, great legislature, as much as we like to take credit for that. It's because of decisions that were made decades ago, generations ago, hundreds years ago, in some instances, and that is these dams that were built and these reservoirs that were built weren't built for that time alone. It was built for the future, knowing that we would be growing, and we have an obligation as a state and as a country to do the same thing for future generations. And so it's one of the ways that I've been really pushing back on the federal government, the Biden administration, to make sure that they understand that dams aren't a bad thing, and they're not a 4-letter word. They're a 3-letter word, and they're a very important word as we work to make sure that we are storing. Now we are looking at other ways to store water as well. And I've got to give a shout out to our friends down in Iron County who have several really impressive water projects that include recharging aquifers. So storing water underground in aquifers that have been depleted or just have storage capacity available. It's a great. Those underground lakes are amazing because there's no evaporation, so the water stays longer, and there are certainly opportunities for us to do those kind of things. But we do have an entire list that we have ranked of where we would like to see dams in the future, and working. Many of those are on federal lands, and so we need federal permission to build those dams. We work with the Army Corps of Engineers and and other agencies to get those dams built, and hopefully we will get some of those. I've been trying to get a dam built. My grandfather, my dad, me in Sanpete County now for 90 years. So some of these are taking a little longer than they should have, but hopefully we'll get more of those done. Okay, let's see. We've got time for a couple more questions. This is coming from Twitter. What are you doing to expand electric vehicle charging and adoption of electric vehicles? This will help not only the local valley pollution, but also with global warming, besides encouraging mass transit. So thank you for this question. And certainly I agree that electric vehicles are going to be a very important part of our future. They're an important part of our present. We're seeing more and more people. There is a huge demand for electric vehicles. So the adoption piece isn't a problem right now. It's actually the production piece. We can't get enough electric vehicles right now. Part of that is a supply chain issue that I mentioned with China and other places. We cannot get enough vehicles right now to meet the demand that exists. So the demand is out there, and more people, as they move on to their next vehicle, will be moving on to an electric vehicle. But I believe that the best way to improve adoption is actually the infrastructure piece, because what we found is the price is coming down on these electric vehicles. One of the reasons that people don't buy vehicles is they're worried that they won't be able to charge their vehicle. They won't be able to travel long enough distances with their cars. Now, certainly some of the newer vehicles have much longer ranges, 300, 400 miles with the battery capacity, which is really impressive. So they'll go as far as a gasoline vehicle or diesel vehicle. But we do have to get more infrastructure out there. So we have been working actually for a couple of years with the legislature on funding to improve infrastructure, to improve charging stations and have more charging stations across the state. The good news is that there is money available for that this year, including in the federal infrastructure funding proposal that came forward. There is a significant amount of money there. That money is just being made available now. There are grant processes that we'll be able to go through as a state to get some of that money, and providers across the state to put in new charging stations, so making it much more easier and ubiquitous. So I'm very bullish on the electric vehicles. I do have to admit, yesterday I got to drive a Rivian, which is an electric truck. Two things that were really incredible. I haven't driven a car for 18 months as governor. We're actually not allowed to drive. We have a security detail that drives us everywhere. That's how it's always been. And so I haven't driven for 18 months, and to have an electric vehicle be the first car that you drive after 18 months, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It was incredible. I've never really experienced anything like it. Of course, did not speed. I obeyed all the speed limits, but I got to the speed limit very quickly, and it was quite an experience. A really impressive vehicle and impressive ride. So I'm very excited to that more and more people will be able to have that type of experience. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we've got another question here. What are your plans to safeguard against election fraud and ensure election laws in Utah are followed? Yeah, excellent question. There's been so much talk about election fraud, and I get a little frustrated because often they're taking facts or things from other states and trying to apply them here, or have a lack of knowledge of the way that we administer elections here. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about, well, let me back up a little bit. I served as lieutenant governor, and in Utah, the lieutenant governor administers elections. And so for 7.5 years, I became an expert on elections, and traveled across the country, met with other people, elections officials in other states. And Utah was the example that they held up as one of the best states for elections and election integrity. And every single year that I was lieutenant governor, and this has continued while I'm governor with Lieutenant Governor Henderson, who is incredible and is doing such good work around this issue. We passed a bill. The legislature passed a bill. I want to give them full credit, with our support and our input, to improve election integrity. Every single year, we look at what's working. We find if there's any issues, and then we fix them and we improve them. So what I would encourage you, I think we passed, 3 or 4 bills this year around election integrity, to make our elections even more secure, make sure that they are fair. But there are so many things that we do. Did you know that we do audits every single year on our election system? Every single year we do audits, and it's great. Now, the state doesn't administer elections. We oversee elections. Those are all done at the county level. So every county has a county clerk, all 29 counties, and they administer the elections. We oversee that. We do the audits. We make sure that they're following the rules. So we have different layers of responsibility, which makes our elections more secure. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about this year is county clerks all across the state are inviting people who have concerns, who have watched, seen social media or Fox News or whatever, and think, oh my gosh, our elections are being corrupted, and they will give you a tour of everything. They will show you how they do it. They will show you all of the security measures that they have in place to make sure that an election can't be stolen, and that there can't be any mass fraud that's happening. It's really interesting. The most fraud we've seen, for lack of a better term, has come when someone in a family fills out a ballot for someone else. It's often a spouse, so like a husband who says, "Oh, I know how my wife is going to vote," or she'll say, "Yeah, go ahead and fill out my ballot, and we'll sign that." That is voter fraud, and we notice, we check every signature. When those signatures don't match, challenge. Then they get a call from the elections official. Sometimes they get a call from the county attorney, letting them know that is fraudulent, and that they can't do that, and that it is a crime. And so we correct that, and we catch those things. Sometimes it's missionaries who are out, or service members who are out serving our country, and a parent who gets the ballot and fills it out for them. Don't do that. That's fraudulent. You can't do that. And so those are the things we've caught. We have not seen any evidence at all of any type of voter fraud, mass fraud in this state. And that's because we have all these checks in the system to do that. Now, again, it's not perfect, which is why we're always tinkering and fixing and making it better. But I really would encourage you to take time and go to your county official, go see it. Every time I've done this, every time I've taken a tour with people and showed them what they do, they leave with much more confidence in the system and the way we do it to make sure that our elections are secure. So, excellent question. Okay, let's see. Wow, we've got so many so many questions. We did get an abortion question, and I think it's really important to answer that one, and I want to do that, and then maybe we'll talk about. It looks like we've got a couple more here, and I know we're running short on time, but I think it's worth answering these two questions. So, general question. We've gotten several questions on abortion and what's happening out there. Obviously, this was big news. There was a leaked opinion. It was a draft opinion. I think that's really important to note, that would overturn Roe v. Wade. That has been the abortion law for 45 years, something like that. So I've always been pro-life, and if you followed me at all, if you followed me in public office, I've been unabashedly pro-life. I believe that Roe v. Wade was bad law. I'm an attorney by trade. I went to law school. I actually took a course in law school on abortion law. It was incredible. It was a very difficult course. We had liberals and conservatives in there. Me being one of the few conservatives in my law school, where we studied abortion law before Roe v. Wade, the Roe v. Wade decision, after Roe v. Wade, and we debated. We learned about abortion itself, the medical science behind it. It was incredibly difficult and disturbing, and so that's where I have always been. Now, I always believe that from a legal standpoint, Roe v. Wade was poorly decided, and I can tell you that almost every attorney in that class, at the end of the class, agreed that it was poorly decided. Even if they supported it and thought it was the right thing to do, they agreed that it was a really tough leap. From a legal standpoint, it's also surprising. Even some very famous Supreme Court justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, probably the most famous, who agreed that Roe v. Wade was problematic. All of that being said, this draft opinion that came out was a draft, so it is not the law. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. That is part of the process. Those familiar with the Supreme Court process, the deliberations and debate that go into that, there are opinions circulated, then there are changes made, and people can decide one thing and change their mind later. They're still going through that process. So it's very damaging to have a leak like that, because it really hurts the deliberative process, which I believe is so important and so sacred. But that's another issue. Now, the state of Utah, 2 years ago, we did pass what's called the trigger law. So understanding that someday Roe v. Wade might be overturned, there is a law already on the books that goes into place that would severely restrict abortion in the state of Utah, with exceptions made for rape, incest, or the health and life of the mother and the child. That is a law that I have always supported and continue to support. So that's already done. So if in June or July the Supreme Court does come out and overturn Roe v. Wade, then that will be the law in the state of Utah. But I have also always said that can't be it. That can't be everything. That there is so much more that we have to do. I've always believed that if we get to the point where a woman needs an abortion or wants an abortion or chooses an abortion, then something has failed along the way to get to that path, right? So I also believe that we need to be focused more on preventing unwanted pregnancies in the first place. It's surprising to some people that abortion rates have been declining over the years, including here in the state of Utah. In fact, we have the lowest abortion rate in the country. I've heard different rates. I heard 2,000 abortions in the past year. I've heard as high as 3,000 abortions in the past year. I don't know exactly what that number is, but that's just kind of the ballpark for the state of Utah that we're talking about. And so first of all, we need to be focusing on preventing unwanted pregnancies, and that means access to contraception and education about contraception. Again, there are people who live a different lifestyle than I do, or that I would that I would advocate for. Certainly, I'm a deeply religious person and have my religious beliefs, but for those who choose contraception, and they should understand about that. We should educate about that, and we should make contraception available to prevent, again, the need for an unwanted pregnancy or an abortion in the first place. The second piece of this is we have to provide more support for mothers. And children. If you're pro-life, you have to be pro-all life. And that doesn't just mean life in the womb. It especially means life outside of the womb. When children are born, that we are focusing on helping moms, helping children, helping families. That's why I propose the creation of an office of parents and children, so that we can focus on these family issues, so that we can focus on having better policies in the state of Utah to support moms and kids. I had a really interesting conversation with a high-ranking official in my church. I won't disclose their name, but they asked me this question. They said, if Utah's a family-friendly state, why does my daughter who's teaching school in Utah not get any paid leave when she has a baby, but my daughter in another state gets paid leave when she has a baby? And I think that's a really important question. It's why I've advocated for paid leave for state employees, and I think we need to look at expanding that so that we are supporting families when children are born. We need to increase and improve adoption in our state and foster care in our state. I believe that we can be the first state in the nation to have no kids on waiting lists for foster care. I believe that we can find a loving home for every single child in this state. And so we're going to have to work together with the legislature to get more funding and work in those areas. And then the last thing is we have to do more to hold men responsible. We have to hold fathers responsible. It takes two to make a baby, and all of that responsibility and that weight should not be left on the mother. And so I believe that there are so many other things that we can do. I know this is a very sensitive and a very divisive topic, and I know people will be angry because of things that I've said tonight. And I again, I understand that this is a very divisive topic. What I hope we can do is that we can find ways to work together, whatever that decision is, however that comes out, that we will find a way to have, again, empathy, kindness with each other, to try to avoid extremes, and to really help people. I want to help people. I know in Utah we care about people, and that's especially moms and babies. And so let's focus on doing more there, and hopefully we can help improve lives in the state. So thank you for giving me that opportunity and that question. And now the final question. This comes from Eric on Facebook. He asks this: our state is currently on pace to reach 400 fatalities on Utah roads. Are you willing to create a task force to study and provide an independent opinion about alternative strategies to not only improve but reverse this decade-long trend of increasing fatalities on Utah roads? So this is really interesting, Eric. And I'm just going to say one thing on this, and that is that it hasn't been a decades-long trend of increasing fatalities on roads. The opposite has actually been true. Road safety across the United States has actually been improving over the decades. If you look at, don't just look at raw fatality numbers, but look at the fatalities per capita or fatalities per mile driven. And what you'll see is there has been a steady decrease as cars have become safer as travel has become safer, and the cars, the AI in cars, lane assist and things like that have been able to improve safety. What we are seeing this year, and you are absolutely correct on this, we are seeing a reverse of those trends. And it has been puzzling to many of us about what is happening out there right now with these fatalities. Not just fatalities in accidents, car-to-car accidents or single car accidents, but also pedestrian accidents that we have seen, and some incredibly tragic cases that you've seen over just the last few weeks. Sadly, the death of children at the hands of drunk drivers, or impaired drivers, or just in accidents. We've seen a huge increase in wrong way drivers on our roads, again, with nothing else changing. And it's been very concerning. And this is happening not just here, but it's happening in other places. Let me just share, I have a little bit of data here. As of today, 107 people have lost their lives on Utah's roads this year. In 2021, it was 94 at this time of year. So we are ahead of that. So 107, we were 94 at this time. So we're ahead of last year. In 2020, it was only 69. So you can see a huge jump from 2020. So we are having people rethink this and relook at this. We're having our engineers, we're convening, we are taking outside consultants and anything we can do to try to figure out what is happening out there. Our roads are engineered safer, cars are safer, but what we're seeing is more reckless behavior. I don't know if this is kind of a post-pandemic issue, but more impaired driving, people driving at higher rates of speeds, distracted driving. Obviously, we need people to stay off their phones, taking innocent lives. So we're going to continue our efforts. Let me tell you, we're increasing our efforts too around our Zero Fatalities campaign. We're trying to get into high schools and middle schools, even elementary schools, working with kids and families, kids that are just getting their driver's licenses to really try to understand. One program I'm really excited about is a Parents' Night. This is where our Zero Fatalities team goes into schools and meets with students who are working on their learning permits. Their parents also attend, and they learn about 5 safe driving behaviors. This is driving alert, driving sober, driving focused, driving calm, and of course, buckling up. And so we're currently in about 70% of our schools, but we're trying to increase that everywhere. What I need you to do, and everybody listening here tonight, is to just think. Do not drive impaired. Do not look at your phone while you're driving. Do not drive distracted. All of those things that we know. Slow down, please, please, please slow down, because what we're seeing out there is very scary and very troubling. So thank you again for the question. If you have ideas, send them our way. We are taking outside input as well, trying to figure out what is going on here. One of the things we're looking at, I've asked our team to look at with the wrong way drivers, as we've had so many people move here over the past few years, are these people who are maybe new to Utah and maybe don't understand the flow of traffic as well. We're not sure, but we're really looking at everything to try to understand what has happened over the past couple of years as we've seen a significant increase. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining us. I know it's been about 50 minutes. We're pushing an hour now. It's been incredible. I love this opportunity to engage with you. Thank you for all of the questions. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying informed. Thank you for sharing the things that are on your mind. Just before I finish, I want to make a plug for our first annual Spirit of Service Awards. I've talked about those here. I want to thank you for your submissions. We had so many submissions, hundreds of submissions, and we had a panel of independent community volunteers that have narrowed it down to 9 winners. We're going to be unveiling that next week. So stay tuned to our social media channels for more details. that's it for me tonight. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're living a happy and prosperous life. And for those of you that are struggling out there, please let us know if there's something that we can do to help. But reach out, take care of your neighbors, take care of your friends and family, and get close to someone who's different than you. We're all friends, we're all neighbors, we're all brothers and sisters, and hopefully we can find ways to overcome some of the divide that's happening in this crazy world right now. I believe we do that better here in Utah than anywhere else, and I feel very lucky to be able to serve as your governor. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a wonderful night, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.